So I drove to Santa Ana from Chino Hills to the church where the choir came from last night. And there is Chino Hills Forest Parkway where the road just winds and it's beautiful. And Helena and I used to say, this is our Nagaland road. You know. And so because I was traveling every day for years, I anticipated where the curves are, you know, how fast I can go on the curves, you know, and when I hit a certain curves, I know I'm closer to home, or you know, when I hit certain curve, this is the end. Now I'm going to hit the freeway, 57, you know, and so you anticipate, you know, where the stop signs are, where the lights are, and because you have been traveling very frequently on this road, and when you frequently travel, sometimes you take things for granted because you have been on this road for so many times. You don't even wonder, you know, what's around you, right? And so familiarity could be a blessing, but at the same time, familiarity could be an abstraction to new blessings. That make sense? Yeah. So on days, Helena would drive and I would be the passenger, and I am terrible passenger. You know, you feel like saying to her, curve is coming, slow down, or I would want to sometime tell her, stop sign is ahead of you, kind of slow down kind of thing, you know. So you cringe, you sit there and you cringe, you know. But on days that you are happy, you know, sitting there and you because I drive SUV and you look around and I say, wow, this is nice. I haven't seen this thing, but it's always been there. It's been there. And I finally see, wow, you know, I've been driving around this thing without seeing this thing. You know. So the world just becomes a little more fascinating, colorful, because you finally saw something that you had taken for granted. Right? Because when you normalize things, sometimes you just miss the beauty of the day. Right? Yeah. So Department of Motor Vehicles says most accidents happens closer to your house, places that you are very familiar with, because we have this tendency, this automatic habitual tendency, subconsciously dictating you know this place. And so you back it out and you go sometimes without watching, because this is my road. I'm the king or the queen of the road, right? And then that is when accident happens. That is according to DMV. Yeah, that's what it is. Familiarity could be a blessing and could be a curse. So we have to watch out. We have to watch out. So we have a great story about journey, about familiar path. roads that you have traveled all the time. So here's two disciples traveling on the familiar road, familiar freeway, familiar walk. Because they have to walk to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is where everything happens. And now they're walking away from Jerusalem to the village called Emmaus, which is about 7 miles. Now, the gospel writer Luke is helping us to realize and maybe understand that Christianity, our faith life, relationship, is a journey. This life is a journey. You cannot be complacent about whether your spirituality or your relationship or even your career or who you are. If you don't, you'll get rusty pretty soon. And rusty knives are horrible knives. Most accident in the kitchen happens not because you have sharp knives, it's because you have dull knives. Right? And so journey is important. We cannot be complacent about anything. And so Luke has a way of narrating the story on a journey framework. Let me read to you from a scholar from, where is he teaching now? He is teaching at Princeton. And this is what he wrote. And I thought, he writes better than me, so I better read. So here it is, quote. A journey brings Mary and Joseph to Bethlehem. A road is the narrative setting for the parable of the Good Samaritan. A road leads the prodigal back home to his father. Jesus sets his eyes toward Jerusalem in Luke chapter 9 and travels there until Luke chapter 19. That's pretty long chapters. This is known among scholars as the travel narrative, wherein we find some of the most distinctively Lucan, that means academically talking about the Gospel of Luke, Lucan contributions to the story of Jesus. Then he continues saying, the roads continues in the book of Acts where, for instance, Paul encounters the risen Jesus on his way to Damascus. There is something about travel that evokes Luke's literary and theological imagination. There is something about roads. The way roads brings us together, the way roads can pose a danger to us all. The way roads become a symbol of a faith on the move. End of quote. It's not just looks like a pretty good sermon to me. So Luke really wants us to be mindful about our journey and to have this sense of self-awareness. Otherwise, like I said before, complacency is not very difficult to enter into our lives. So Luke tells another story. There is these two guys, both maybe after the big celebration, shindig in Jerusalem, they're both returning home. And they're having this very deep, persuasive discussion about what took place. They are in a way, the Greek word is disbelieve. It's not, they are not even wondering about it. It's just their conversation is about disbelief. And sometimes, we say to ourselves, I wish I was a little flies perched in the right place and just listening to the conversation of these people, right? Do you do that sometimes? Have you said that? So that's exactly what happened. These two are just talking, and maybe they're talking like this, because that's how men do, maybe kicking some rocks, and Jesus just finally, comes closer to them, and he is part of the conversation, and then he says, "What are you guys talking about? You guys are just talking. You guys are pretty serious, kind of sad. What happened?" And then Cleophas says, Cleophas is in fact very incredulous the way he responds to Jesus. Are you the only guy in town who doesn't really know what's going on? Right? So much has happened. And you really don't know? You're coming out of Jerusalem? You never heard this? The whole town is talking about it. Right? But it just seems like Jesus is also playing with these two guys. What do you mean? Right? Tell me about it, Well, before this conversation, Jesus is risen, and all the Marys are there, and they saw the tomb was empty, and all the disciples came around, and they figured out what Mary said was right, Somehow men have to confirm it, So they came and, oh, yeah, it's not there. And then, Mary encountered Jesus in the garden, and she just thought he was a gardener, but it was Jesus. Just things are happening, and then so these two are having this conversation, and a lot of things that happen, and then, this Jesus guy is not really figuring. I think he was just playing with them. That's my thing. And so the beauty of the story is these two disciples gives Jesus a detailed, scriptural, happenings. I think that is profound. They knew exactly what prophets had spoken and what would happen. But when it happened, they did not believe. Right? Doesn't that sound like us? We talk about it, and it happened, and you go, I don't know. Right? It's just because we just like to travel on the road that we always travel in, and something new is not immediately perceived and received well, and so even though they knew the whole narrative, it's like us. We all grew up in Sunday school. We know all the stories. We know what Jesus said. Jesus loved the little children, all the children of the world. We learn all those songs. And then when the reality hits, you go, why? Why? So this is exactly what is happening. Um, the disciples, I was kind of fascinated by that. Why they would have the story so much in detail in their mind, and somehow did not come close enough to make them realize that this exactly took place, and Jesus is right there by you, and you are not recognizing it, right? So journey comes to an end, and Jesus is saying, I've got to go a little more further. And the two of them says, "Oh, it's dark. You know, your journey is long. Why don't you just come in with us and rest for a while, and maybe go home tomorrow morning?" Hospitality invited Jesus to two of those men's, I don't know, house, a place to eat. And something happened. When you show hospitality, hospitality happens when you are willing to open your gate of your hearts, and allow somebody into your life. It is more than greeting somebody at the door. Hospitality is much deeper. And then the breaking of the bread occurs, right? And then, ding, something happens. This is the guy we've been talking about, right? Isn't that interesting? This is the guy we've been talking about. And then, of course, weren't we having this kind of strange feeling in our hearts when he was talking to us? We see that too, right? I knew, somehow that my ESP was functioning when this person was talking to me. I just knew things was, right? We all have this extra sensory perceptions about stuff, right? You don't even have to say it, but just by looking at the eyes, you go, something is not right? Or something is just wonderful. Last night, the girl who was standing here, her name was Jessica, and in the Facebook, she had just said they are expecting a baby. And so last night, I didn't do it because I don't want to embarrass her or whatever. So there was this ESP thing last night, and then she goes, "Pastor, you should have said it." So it just we have this way of knowing, percepting, But I think the beauty of this text is the normality. The normality broke when the two disciples invited Jesus into the house and was willing to have a supper with Jesus. That is when the new revelation occurred. Make sense? New thing, unexpectedly, something beautiful came out of that encounter. Sometime when we are traveling on the road that is so familiar to us, we all just think life is just monotonous every day. You wake up and then you drive on this road for 45 minutes to work, and then by the time you come home, you are driving an hour and a half to work, to home, it's just normal life, We just, go through this motion. And that could happen in our own spirituality as well. We've been coming to church. We sit on the same pew. We talk to the same people. We have just normalized everything. And it just, But something need to happen for a sense of revival to come out of it. Some kind of a renewal to come out of it. Some new perspective to come out of it. That every Sunday worship should be a profoundly deep experience because we have been saved from corruptible things to incorruptible things. The text, illuminated for us. That is our journey. It is not chicken scratch. It's deep. And sometimes we just want to hang around on the surface to the chicken dance. Making sense? But sometimes I think we need to go deeper into. And when you go deeper into, it is painful. Because you're doing something that you don't want to do. But when you do it, you figure it out. Wow, I have learned something about myself. Right? I have learned something about our church. I've learned something about somebody. And I'm profoundly happy. Right? That's what happened. Two disciples, two strangers invited this guy to the house. They broke the bread, and then boom, something very beautiful happens. And did I just blow up that candle? And then the text says, disciples, instead of staying there overnight, they immediately left. That means they ate the dinner. They got so excited. They wanted to share. How can you keep something powerful that happened and sleep overnight? They started the journey back to Jerusalem to meet the 11 disciples and tell them what these ladies were telling was right. He's up. He's running. No, he wasn't running. I don't know. He was walking. See? Something good can happen to all of us. Don't be complacent on the road that you have been traveling. Look at the markers. Look at things. It might tell you something different. That might change your life profoundly. Amen? I'm done.